your thing. Do your thing. Chicken wing. All right. I'm sorry, I just couldn't stay away. I like running bad one. I am in. Where am I? West Virginia. I am getting ready to turn off up here because I got to go to Morgantown to spend the night. There we go. Off. Looks like overexposure on there. And we're in the climb lane. Oh, holy crap. I decided to jump back on. I'm getting tired. This keeps me awake. I'm in West Virginia. I have reprogrammed. That didn't last. Alrighty. I came back on here because I'm getting kind of tired. I still got a little ways to go, about 3 hours. And we're in West Virginia. You cut through the mountains of West Virginia, they toll road you to death. So I have reprogrammed my GPS to avoid some of these toll roads because when you're in a commercial vehicle, they jack you a whole lot more than they jack regular car drivers, and I find that rather annoying. So I'm doing a little okey doke here to get around the toll roads. It's like $25 to have the great honor of driving the roads. But I don't like that. Oh. Choo-choo. He's getting up ahead of steam. Oh, the pig. What does that say? Bumba the pig. Hey, what's up? Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still en route up here. I'm in West Virginia right now, and I am essentially dodging toll roads. That's my current mission. I am going to Morgantown, West Virginia, where there is a pilot flying J, and my destination is to get there, to spend the night, and then in the morning, oh yeah, it's all good. Yeah, and in the morning, I have to deliver this box of transmission stuff at 7 a.m. So I'll have a few hours to sleep up here, and then I got to keep going. I'm gonna find out, but I'll be about 20 or 25 miles off from the destination. Given the choice, Galleon Park, I'm off in Georgia, and I travel up there quite often. I spend a lot of time trying to dodge. Yeah. Tolls just eventually got the easy pass. Yeah, there's some people, excuse me, they get easy pass, and there are certain states that share easy pass. Well, I've seen these vans, they've got like 7 of these things on their windshield. The problem is, with all this counter cross sharing, at what point do you go through a toll road and it hits 3 of your easy passes? How are you going to keep track and keep record, and how are you going to argue with them when you get charged 3 different times for the same area? That's why I don't mess with Easy Pass. And in Houston, they have an Easy Pass there, and they roll out of bed one morning and decide to double the rates and they reach into your bank account. I've watched happen on the news. They reach in your bank account and just take out the money they want. And if you have a billing problem, you call the customer service work it. But if they've already reached into your bank account and taken the money, they're not really willing to talk about a dispute with the billing. Away fly over, I believe it is West Virginia. Could try to read it and not bounce too much going on the road here. Drive 2 miles down the road. Yeah, there's a couple little. Let's see, 124 here. That's me. There's a couple ways to dodge this. Uh, some of a pain in the ass if you're in a truck, but in a van it's easy. And this is my first time into West Virginia in quite a while, so I wasn't really prepared for this. But I think that's what I'm doing right now is I'm dodging this. This whole job is a game of nickels and dimes. That's why I get excited about getting discounts on fuel, saving money with gas mileage, and sleeping in the van, and then having to say, "Oh, by the way, here's $25 to have the great honor of driving down your roads." It just rubs me the wrong way. But anyway, I'm assuming the stream's going to be good because we're on an interstate. I hope, like the last few days where the stream kept disappearing. All right. 64. Let's see here. Go up here. I'm literally just following the GPS right now. I dialed up Morgan City and it's showing it 160-ish miles out. Once I get in close, I'll put in the pilot in my other phone, this phone, but I'm talking on, and I'll hone it in. But I haven't been here in a few years. Yeah, I was looking at the paperwork. I'm carrying a small crate, and it's on the paperwork here. It says Dodge transmission parts, and they said I'm delivering it not to a business, but to a job site, which kind of indicates that they probably have a heavy piece of equipment that blew up or had a problem of some sort, and it's broken on the site, and they need to fix it. That's why there was this need to hurry up and get this equipment overnighted. Okay, it's just showing me doing. Yeah. I'm doing a dog leg. This is interesting. All right. I'm going to see what this is. Do a dog leg over there. This is going to be interesting with the road construction. I would have thought I'd just go north, but let's see what happens here. Okay, there's the. Is this it? I guess this is it. Cool. How am I? I am having fun. Getting tired. That's why I came back on here. When I'm babbling with people, I could stay awake a little better. Man, I can relate to work. Basically, I just pressure washer the restaurants. Oh, that's you. Yeah, that's hard labor right there. You just get tired after a while. I didn't sleep worth a crap last night, and I was tossing and turning at 4:30, and I just got up, put my generator away. I don't know why this is running me down this road, but I'm going through town. Huh. Guess I'm going to find out. Oh, this must be the toll road dodge. Okay, I'll do it. Whatever. Yeah, this isn't a physically demanding job. You're just sitting in the van all day, but you got to get up, move around because it's not good to sit for long periods. Occasionally, how can I email you? Why do people keep asking me that? Email me what? That's the question. You're like the second person to ask me for an email address. There's a contact link on my page you can click on. I don't know the wisdom of giving out an email address on there. Yeah, this the way these CB radios work is you go by another vehicle and it's like you're getting trash off of it. It starts buzzing. Yeah, I keep a little can in here for change for paying tolls, and I hit the first toll booth and there's three of them. And I hit the first one and it costs $7 because again, commercial vehicle instead of being the $4 or whatever. And I was like, what? Well, I don't even know what town this is. It is, what time is it? It's 10:20 here local, so not a lot of movement. It's Friday, which probably means the police are out and about. What do gas prices look like? 304. That's not. I finally was able to find an air pump, by the way. When I email you, you probably a problem. Like I said, I have a contact thing in my page. You can click on it. It'll get to it. Oh, steep hill. West Virginia's got some interesting neighborhoods. There's a lot of history in this area. Be more fun to be looking at this in daylight hours, but such is life in the big city. Years ago, I was shopping for real estate, and I was kind of looking all over the place, and just kind of getting ideas. And I had remembered driving through this area, Morgantown, or in West Virginia in general. And I'm looking at little towns, and what a lot of people were doing were buying old houses and cleaning them up and making them look wonderful. Fresh paint and redo the interior, upgrade the appliances, and it looked great. But underneath all that was still the same old house with the bad pipes and the old foundation and stuff. So that's the one fear of buying an old house that's been remodeled is a lot of time they just put lipstick on a pig. You got to watch out for that. Like I said, underneath that pretty exterior and that pretty paint job, you don't know what's happening. It's like shining the paint on a car, but it's got 500,000 miles on the motor. It doesn't do any good. I really don't know why this is routing me through town here. This is kind of ridiculous. But oh well. I have stopped at a couple of rest areas and none of them had the bottle. Uh, I haven't been able to refill my bottle, and I'm down to my last little drizzle here. This is kind of annoying. They didn't even have water fountains. Oh, 3.7 miles on this. And, that's into that. That's empty. That's empty. Do I have anything down here on the floor? There we go. Ha-ha! Another container. Yeah, 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 yeah. All right. Whoa. How did that get to be blurry on the screen? I apologize for that. I don't know why it's doing that. We're not like moving or anything. That looks terrible. Hold on. Really didn't mean to be driving through town right now, but here we are. This is one long ass traffic light. Oh, look, another turn arrow. Seriously. You know, for an absolute non-intersection, this is pretty impressive how long they have you sit here. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the camera. It's totally overexposed right there for some reason. It's like saturation or something. It's weird. Oh, 309. Oh, great. It gets more expensive. All right. Well, this anyway, my turnoff up here is back to US 19, which is what I've been trying to get to. I don't know why. This is anywho. Given the choice, I prefer to drive at night. It's more relaxing. I like the lighting situation, and I like the fact that after about 10 o'clock at night, most cars are off the road. The truckers have their limits of how much. Look, another red light. How much they can drive, so they're off the road pretty early. And regular travelers, they're off the road in a hotel. So it just, oh God, I can't believe it. Look, another red light. Damn, jeez, this isn't helping. Texas Roadhouse. Yeah, it's Friday night. Severe lack amount of cars right here on for a Friday. Let's see here. I'm going to wipe the lens here. I don't know why. I don't know why though. Is that better? No, that's even worse. Hold on. All right, I'm going to wipe this on my shirt. I don't know why my camera is doing that. That looks like absolute garbage. It's not like I have it on night vision or maybe we'll get back out of here and get back on the road and it'll stop doing that. Oh. Anyway, this is West Virginia, in case anybody's wondering. Went through two very long tunnels on the interstate getting over here. I mean, like 2 miles long. It was shocking how long those tunnels were. We got some good coasting in on some pretty steep hills, which I really enjoy doing. There is nobody in that lane. Oh, behind me. Go, man. So I was able to find that rest area slash travel center. And a travel center is a insanely convenient gas station on the interstate, on a toll road interstate that the state owns. So they make a dump truck load of money off that. And I whipped in there and I found an air pump that worked. Ha 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 ha. And I was finally able to put a little air in that right tire, and it's riding a whole lot better. Two, 2.1 miles. And on the upside, the further north I get, the cooler it gets, and it's now down to 70 degrees. It's not humid. So tonight I will be able to sleep without setting up my air conditioner, which is going to make it real convenient. Why is this van acting like we're climbing Mount Kilimanjaro? 1.7. People tuning in, where's everybody from? I always ask that question. Did I just had drumsticks? Smart, delicious. Cool, cool. I stopped and ate something, but I'm sitting here and I can't remember what it was. My brain doesn't go back to. Oh, Subway. Yeah, I ate Subway earlier. Meatball sub. That's what they're thinking about that, man. I got to figure out how to get these water bottles filled up. All right, 1.1 miles back to the highway. Ooh, Subway. Yeah. I don't. Subways are attached to Pilot a lot. They are some association there. Occasionally put a Wendy's in there, but I'm not really a fast food person. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do. It's just the way it is. And like I was saying, during daylight hours, I use the Upside app, and you click on that, and you kind of look around where you're at, and it'll show you restaurants with the discounts and stuff, and it gets you to go to a restaurant with something new or something you didn't know was there. That's why I like using it. Walk, dog again. So the dog's going to take you for a walk. What? Where's my turn? Where's my turn? Oh, there it is. US 19 North. And I don't know. I have no idea why this thing just ran me 5.5 miles through town. That was ridiculous. They were doing construction, but they weren't doing that much. All right, let's try this again. There we go. 67 miles to the next turn. Now we're talking. Now we're cooking with Crisco. Big ass bucket lights. And I have enough fuel to get to my next destination here. But if I see a rest area, I may bail out and try to get water to fill up my containers here because I've gone through them. So I'm going northeast bound right now. What is that last app again? I use two apps routinely out here. One is called Fetch, and Fetch is you're just taking pictures of receipts, and you get points for the receipt. The only limitation to taking the receipts is it can't be more than 14 days old, and it limits you to 35 a week. And it gives you points, and it shows it's looking at what products you're buying and where you're buying them. And they really don't know that much about you. It's not like they've got all your information or anything. And what they're trying to do is say, hey, buddy, I see you buy Kleenex, but if you buy this brand, we'll give you more points. They're trying to nudge you towards whatever it is they're pushing. And when you get up enough points, you turn it into money in the form of gift cards. And like right now, at 12,500 points, I get a $10 thing and I move it to Amazon. I just transfer it over. And over the last year or so, I pulled a little over $200 out of it, just taking pictures of receipts. And the trick is, it doesn't say whose receipts, up to and including the ones you find on the ground at Walmart. And Walmart's the best. You get those big long receipts. You actually take 3 pictures of it because it's too big. And I use that. I've been doing it, and I get that $10, and I gather those up. And I was saying earlier, that's how I buy my oil for the van. I buy it off Amazon. And I use Upside, which gives you discounts on gas. Again, it builds up in an account. You cash it out. You can send it to your bank account, or you can get a gift card with it. It's whatever you want to do. And I I let that build up. I usually do $20 at a time. I pull it out, or 25, and again, I send it to Amazon and I buy the oil and the filters for my van. So I use it. But Upside is good for restaurants and gas. And when they're really trying to get you to start using a place, they'll give you an insane discount. This might be nationwide, I don't know, but in Texas, there's a pizza joint called Marco's. And as I've continued to use the app, the percentage goes down. But they started me out at 42% off the purchase. And my wife and I have been buying pizza there for a while. Now it's down to about 12% or 10%. It starts to taper off once they've got you trained. I discovered a place called Noodles and Company, which is a really good restaurant, not real heavy food, really, really, really good. And they were doing, I think, 28% kickback. And it's like you claim it, is what it calls. You claim it, it's good for 4 hours. You go buy your food, it confirms the last four digits on your credit card to confirm you were there, and then it takes like 3 days, and boom, it shows up on your card. It's a pretty good system. I've used it for some grocery stores, not many. There are some grocery stores that will use it, and Panera Bread. For some reason, I'm there on the road. I've been eating in Panera Bread, which is kind of pricey, but when they're giving you 38% back, I mean, what else? I mean, what is there to complain about? And you go out and eat by myself. I go eat a regular meal, and then 3 days later, $4.63 appears in my, on my little thing as it starts to build up. It's pretty awesome, and I use it regularly on the road. Again, you open it up, and I can be driving down the road. I'm thinking, okay, I'm thinking about food. So you open the app, and it's on a map, and you can move up the highway 10 miles and kind of look and go, okay, I'll stop bubbling here. And I use them pretty regularly. Panera, no, I don't use an app. I just go to the restaurant. You claim it on your Upside app, and then you go there. They don't see it. They don't see you use it. And it says claim. And sometimes it says, okay, you've done everything. It's linked to your card. Their computer will see that you use the card. At other times, it'll say, oh, you need to upload the receipt. It's different. There's no pattern to it. And then you turn around and take that exact same receipt and put it on fetch. See how that worked? So I run two at a time. I really don't like this traffic light situation right now. Yeah, I really don't like going through traffic lights. I thought we were on the highway here. Yeah, this could get annoying after a while. Yeah, fetch. If you look at fetch, you download it, and if you look at the bottom of the screen, there's like a yellow button. You hit it, and it will. If you link it to like your Amazon account and your all the other little online purchases, it will electronically scan your online purchases and give you points for those too. I mean, it looks for the receipts, and then it tries to market things to you they think it can sell to you, so you get a little bit of that, but not much. And my wife, I've got her on there too, so I'll be banging away with receipts, and I run out of room, and I'll say, "Wife, phone," and I'll just grab hers, and I'll start hammering away with hers and fill it up. And you can't double dip. If you take a picture of a receipt and it gives you points, and you turn around and take a picture of that receipt again, it'll say we've already got it. If you turn around and use the wife's phone and take a picture, it'll say it's already been scanned. I mean, it's that fast. It catches on, so you can't double dip. But I was saying, right now, the way mine is, at 12,500 points, I get $10. And any receipt, I mean, any receipt's worth 25, and it goes up from there. I got a Walmart receipt from my mother that was worth 4,400 in one setting. Please don't run over any animals today. Yeah, I won't. I haven't. I don't really drive all that fast, and I'm paying attention other than playing with my phone here, looking at it. I have driven. I was driving out west, and you come into Amarillo from the west. Highway kind of bows up to the northeast, and then Highway 287 branches out of Amarillo down to the southeast. And you kind of get out all the lights, and there was a bunch of trucks out there, and all of a sudden, I'm seeing impact mark carcasses like every few miles. That's when I started down. I was like, whoa, that's way too much roadkill for one small, time distance and time. I was like, whoa. So there must have been something going on. Other than getting knocked off my motorcycle as a teenager going up into the mountains, I've never actually hit an animal, but I had an animal hit me, which I thought was kind of rude. Okay, I did hit, let's see, flying down the beach, and the rotor disc on a helicopter leans forward a little bit, and I was boogieing from Cameron, Louisiana to Sabine. It's like about 30 miles, and it was the last flight of the day, and I was just racing down the beach to land and go home. And I had a seagull in front of me and coming up behind him, and I'm scooting right along, and the seagull went, I'm going to dodge left. No, no, right. No, wait, left. No, right. No, left. I hit him with the rotor disc, and no pun intended, I didn't know you could get that much shit out of one seagull, because that thing exploded, and it sounded like a wet mop hitting a cinder block wall, and it covered every square inch of the windshield. Oh, thanks. Just schwack, and the whole windshield was covered. And I'm like, well, that was impressive. Okay, yeah, it just did its first drop. That sucks. Whoa. Yeah, the feed dropped there for a second. I hope it doesn't make it a routine. But yeah, you hang out with people. Just the stuff that happens. The other time I took out a bird. We're flying along, and neither I nor the guy sitting next to me ever saw it. But we thunked a bird with a chin bubble on the aircraft, and it went through the plexiglass double tap screen, and it went thump, and then feathers were all around in the cockpit. The guy Dave was his name. Dave Doty. By the way, Dave is a truck driver now. And Dave looked down, and he had fish guts and stuff all over his pant legs, and it smelled to high heaven. But it went kerk smack when it hit him. Both looked down and went, "Did you even see that bird?" Nope. I said, "Neither did I." And one other time, everything that flies takes off and lands into the wind. I'm coming into land, and there's a way to tell where the wind is coming on based on the waves. So I'm offshore, and I'm coming on a platform. A little deck on the top of a offshore platform. And I see the waves, and there's seagulls all over the deck, which makes the deck smell oh so wonderful. And there's a dozen of them, and they'll stand there and just hold their ground until they decide, okay, this thing's actually going to land. And they take off, and you watch them turn just a little bit into the wind. And then we land, and I roll the throttle off, and I'm at flight idle. And I'm watching this one, he's kind of hovering above us, hovering. And I'm like, don't try to land back. Nope, he decided he's going to land back on the deck. So he decided to, just come on down through the rotor system and land. And yeah, that didn't turn out so well. Poof, gone. Oops. Highway 19, Clarksville. Huh. I landed in a field. I don't remember why I was there, but they had mowed this big field. And off to the right, the grass was like knee high. And somewhere in the grass was one of those styrofoam take-home containers, the one that's got 3 compartments, 2 little ones and a big one, and you fold it over and the little gears lock together. Well, one of those was in the grass, and it blew it away, and it landed while open. I didn't even see it where it came from. It hit the windscreen right in front of my face. I mean, open, it went smack where I was looking, and somebody screamed like a girl. That thing scared the crap out of me. Whack! Oh, jeez, what the? Ugh. Hello? Yeah. Sitting there thinking about flying all of a sudden. Alrighty. Still, man, gas here is still over $3 a gallon. Wow. But I don't need gas, so I guess that works. So I'm on this for another 54 miles, and then they're going to put me on Highway 79. Why is it? All right, hold on. I'm moving the map out. Moving the map out. Well, it takes me right there. Well, that's kind of cool. I guess this does work. I just don't want to go through this. No. Traffic lights. And calling somebody over. Say hi. Who is that? Blue Ingray? Hi. Whoa. Hey, well, hi, back. Yeah, we're driving from central Tennessee to Morgantown, West Virginia with a load on board, and I am in, I think, West Virginia, and I've got about 2.5 hours of driving to go to get to my destination. Or flashing lights, which is going to be spending the night. I'll get a few hours of sleep, and then I got to finish out and go to this job site. And like I said, I imagine it's transmission parts, and I imagine it's a guy riding a bicycle on the side of the road. That was a good idea. It's a broken tractor or something at the job site. Well, thank you, Lou. Louis? Yeah, I don't think I'm going to do this again, where I'm going to get stuck on traffic lights. This wasn't part of the package. But once I get back on 79, it's back on straight interstate. Safe travels. I'm in Morgantown. Morgantown, yeah. That's where I'm headed. Going to the Pilot Flying J there for tonight, whichever one it is. Yeah. Yeah, this was a bad call. Going this way. Oh my God. Safe travels. Love the light. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know why it's doing that. I don't know if my phone adjusted to something weird, but it's really showing the lights strange. I was talking about this earlier today. I was up at like 4:30 this morning. I couldn't sleep. I was flopping around, so I went for my pickup and I started streaming from the truck stop, and I immediately went in mountains in Tennessee. I mean, instantly, and the stream died. So I turned on. Is that what's doing it? The humidity? The humidity's doing it. It didn't seem real humid outside, but there still may be moisture in the air. And I ended up just turning on my camera and filming. And if you look at, I have it on my playlist, something called about a goat track or a goat trail. And I drove 25 miles in the pitch black of night through the Tennessee mountains on a barely single lane road. And it was foggy to make it, extra creepy. Turn on the air for a bit. It's on. It's actually running the air conditioner. And I was driving down this goat track, and you'll see in the video the lighting, it's kind of hard to see, but at times, I had plants rubbing both sides of the van, and my CB antenna was slapping trees as you twist and zigzag through the woods. And I did that for 20, I think it was a total of 28 miles. And I'm like, this is how you get to your pickup? Driving down I know Bigfoot knocked on my window and asked me if I needed some help. And then a serial killer could have reached in the van because the bushes were literally there. And what really concerned me was if I meet a car going the other direction, I'm screwed because there is absolutely no way to pass. You couldn't even walk past my vehicle, let alone drive. And I was concerned the whole way, and I never bumped into another car, with which I was very happy for. But it was some kind of, what is this, a bridge? We got something coming up. Looks interesting. It's lit up. 51 miles to go. Oh, the traffic. Oh, that's just a lit up bridge. I've been through a series of tunnels. Is that a footbridge? What is that? Looks interesting. Oh. Oh, that's why they're warning. You can't see the traffic light here all over it. Ah. That's it. I'm telling my mom. These people are all in trouble. Yeah, I got the air on. I cleaned the windows here a little while ago. I wonder if there's just a setting on the phone or something. I have no techie skills or dancing skills. Me, I just tell war stories. Oh, a fairy tale starts with once upon a time And a war story starts with, no shit, there I was. That's what they used to say. Pilots start talking smack to other pilots. And, oh, there I was flying in an aircraft, a helicopter when the main rotor popped off and the engine fell out. We were falling out of the clouds upside down. Nobody could see. And I said, well, how did you know you were upside down? Well, my air medals were dangling in my face. And that's why I was able to recover. The traffic lights I see on my phone. I just hear pilots start talking all that smack at each other. And just, the good old days. We went to a firing range. You knew what it says. Are you part of the New River George Bridget? I'm on a bridge right now. I don't know what it's called. While I was reading this, I got on the bridge, so I didn't even see what it was. When I was playing Army, I was stationed in Colorado Springs in a unit that I don't even know if it exists anymore. Okay, I guess I'm on it. New River Gorge National Park. How did you know that? Magic. Some kind of sorcery going on. And we went out to a firing range. And I flew the old Cobra attack helicopter, which is long retired out of service. My MOS in the Army was 152 Golf, and 152 Golf doesn't exist anymore. It's a dead job title because they don't have it anywhere, even in guard units. And we went out to a firing range, and I was in the front seat. My job title was co-pilot gunner. We had rocket pods on the side of the aircraft. We had tow missiles, a 20 millimeter cannon, and rocket pods. And in Vietnam, the rockets were useful because you dive out of the sky and shoot them. But in a modern war, you can't dive out of the sky because you can't climb into the sky. You have to stay low. So to me, rockets are kind of a waste of time. They look pretty, but they don't really do anything. So we would go out to these ranges to fire the rockets off laterally, which means you're level to the ground, and you get rocket wobble from the rotor wash. And I don't know why I remember this. EPG. What affects the trajectory? Wind, propellant, angle, yaw, and gravity affects the aim. So you shoot it hovering, the rotor wash hits it going down, the rotor wash hits it going up, and the rocket wobbles, it goes nowhere. You can't do anything with it. It's not. I don't even know what the purpose of it anymore is. But anyway, to fire, you have a rocket pod on either side. They have 19 rockets per side. And the way you fire them is you had this mechanical, not digital, but mechanical wheel you would dial. And if you fired the rockets, what they called mode times quantity, 1 pair, 2 pair, 2 quad. It would ripple the rockets out. And they were not that far apart in the tubes. But once they exited the tube, the fins would unleash and pop out. So that's why you want them to ripple out of there, kind of separate. So I get out the little book and I'm flipping through it, and I'm reading this, and then I'm spinning the dial, and there's a letter A. Okay, what's A mean? We dial it up. Go look at the book. A. Don't use A. Yeah, okay, right, whatever. So we go out to the range, take on a full load of rockets. We fire some here, we fire some there, we go back, we reload, go back out to the firing line, we kind of hide. There's like a hill. We're back. And dialed up A and push the button. Well, if anybody's interested and they ever find themselves flying a Cobra attack helicopter, don't shoot with A, because A meant all right now. Now, the rockets were blue spears, as they call them. They're training rockets. They don't have explosive warheads in them. They just hit the ground and go thud. They don't do anything. So 38 rockets exit the tube at the exact same time. And there's not enough real estate for 38 rockets to come out of the tube at the same time. So they started crashing into each other before they even exited the tube, one of which bounced off the side of the airframe where I was sitting. One made a 90-degree turn and went up through the rotor system without hitting it somehow. Some of them stuck into the ground, and a couple of them flew over by the guys that were watching us. And then the fun started, because when those rockets all shot out of the tube, all of that hot exhaust gas got sucked into the air inlet. And the aircraft proceeded to have a heart attack and overtempt, and the engine started losing power. So we started settling, and the only way you could let the aircraft catch its wind is to dump the power, but we didn't have anywhere to go. We dumped the power, and the aircraft kind of hesitated as we're falling out of the sky. It caught its breath, and Mike pulled, and we popped up to a hover. And then we came back up, and you remember all those dudes that were on that little hill over in front of us? Yeah, they're gone. A couple of blue spears snuck into the dirt over by them. Oh, the good old days. The good old days. To be 21 again. As I've said this before, I look around and I'm saying, I see a 21-year-old running the streets. And I'm like, dude, I wouldn't let you push a lawnmower through my yard. And we're out flying attack aircraft. I don't know, the world's just different now. Yeah, it's so different. Ooh, another bridge. There it is. All right, we're out in the open here. Here we go. Hope the stream stays up. I like it. Yeah, I was in a cavalry unit, air cavalry. That was fun. Fun while it lasted. One of the big fallacies about war, Vietnam lost a lot of family members, 74, 75. You would think the Vietnam experience would have wised up the U.S. government and to not, start getting into quagmires like Afghanistan and stuff. It's just, you need to have an end game. And a lot of times these politicians don't have an end game. That's why the Gulf War was so well fought when Bush 41 said, okay, here's your objective. Do this, this, and this. Let us know when you're done. Bam, done. And what has gone on since the origins of the universe is militaries train for war, and they always train for war based on the last war. And the next war is always different. Who would have known we were going to have drones flying up and dropping a hand grenade in your lap? I mean, where'd that come from? That wasn't even a consideration when I was in playing Army. I mean, that throws everything sideways. And then again, a war 5 years from now, it's going to be something else. It's going to be something else. What can you do? Good evening, Jerry. What's up? Blue Pinkman, Vietnam lost a lot of, that was a dumpster fire. I was stationed at Fort Hood in the 1980s. When I originally signed up, I was enlisted. As I say, enlisted scum. And I crewed a tank. I crewed the original M1 tank, the M1A nothing, with the 105 cannon. And we would go out to the firing ranges twice a year and qualify. You had training and you had a qualification, and you go for who could get the high score and all that stuff on the range. And if you look at Fort Hood, look at the ranges from above, it looks like a wagon wheel, a big circular wagon wheel. In the middle where the hub is a mountain. And the spokes are the ranges. And the ranges are really big. They're half a mile wide and 6 or 7 miles long towards that mountain. So, have a blessed evening. Sweetheart, oh, stop. The Bradley, tell you what, I crewed we had Bradleys in our motor pool. The Bradley is a 1980s weapon, and I think, in my personal opinion, I think the Ukrainians use it better than we've ever employed. In the Ukraine war, neither side employs tanks properly. Tanks are an offensive weapon exclusively. And if the line is here and we're on this side and the bad guys are on that side, you put all your armor in one place and you charge at the enemy, and you're going to take some losses, and you go through them, and then you just keep on going. And you get a distance, you're going to get past all their defenses, you're going to get into their artillery, you're going to get into their supplies, and wherever you're going, 10 miles, 50 miles, I don't care what it is, you circle the wagons and you hold that spot, and it totally disrupts the enemy, and they have to fall back and reform their lines. What they're doing over in the Ukraine war is the war is stagnant. Both sides have time to put out minefields and dig tank traps and set up ambush positions and employ their drones and do all this stuff. And they just take a few tanks and they run out in the kill zone and they get blown up. And both sides are doing that. It's kind of stupid. The Bradley and the environment they're fighting in over there has been a phenomenal weapon. And it's 40 plus years old. It's an older weapon system. It's got the 25 millimeter Bushmaster chain gun, which is designed to kill anything but a tank. It's an infantry fighting vehicle, and it's got that 25 mic with a depleted uranium core. And then they showed an example of the type of ammunition. They've got stuff I've never even heard of. They're shooting. They had a display of like 8 different rounds. There's high explosive and incendiary and depleted uranium penetrators. And then on the side of the turret, they have a tow launcher. And that's what my helicopter had. A tow is a heavy anti-tank missile, old school, like 1970s. It literally has 2 little wires attached to it. And I was watching YouTube, my favorite place in the world. They take vehicle later seconds. One more thing about the Ukrainians, they operated with Soviet/Russian equipment. They're familiar with it. And they've been able to use this Western equipment and compare apples to apples. And I've seen interviews, and every one of them loves the Bradley and its capabilities. Absolutely love it. That's old, kind of semi-obsolete. They take whole tree lines. Yeah, the Bushmaster, and that 25 millimeter chain gun. It's not a machine gun; it's a chain gun. It goes boom, boom, boom. It has a certain rate of fire to it. But on the side of the turret, there's no N, by the way, in turret. On the side of the turret on a Bradley, it has a box that has 2 tow missiles in it. And you can fire one and then the second one. And then if you turn the turret to a certain degree, a guy behind you can pop open a hatch, reach up there and shove more tubes into the launcher and then drop the hatch and disappear. So you can reload on the run. And I watched a YouTube video at night, and it was a drone. I didn't even know they could do this, but a drone with thermal equipment, thermal cameras on a drone. So that's a pretty sophisticated piece of equipment. And the way a tow missile operates is you line up on your target, you pull the trigger, and there's a little CO2 bottle. It pops the CO2, which spins a gyro inside the weapon to balance it. And the gyro spins 42,000 RPM and then starts to wind down. And then the launch motor barfs the missile out of the tube, and it clears the tube, and then the flight motor kicks in. It burns for 1.5 seconds. The missile accelerates to Mach 0.98 and then shuts off, and it glides the rest of the way. And I'm watching this video, and I see the pop, the burn, and the burnout. And then you can see the heat. I said, that's a tow. I watched it go down a road a mile away and hit a Russian tank that was turning the corner. And I went, these guys are getting good. And that's a 50-year-old weapon. That's been around. And like I said, they get to use the Western equipment, and every one of them says it's wildly superior. The artillery is better. The Javelin missile, which I'd never heard of that. That missile they shoot, and it flies overhead and then shoots a projectile from overhead, because the armor on top of the tank isn't that thick, because that's not normally where they get attacked from. But they've interviewed these guys, and they're loving that stuff over there. And I think it was under the previous Trump administration, they handed off HIMARS. And when I was in, they had a thing called the Multiple Launch Rocket System, which was called a Miller's, and it was a tracked vehicle that fired rockets. A HIMARS is like the super upgraded version of it, and it's wheeled, and it's a rocket that's guided. The difference between a rocket and a missile is a missile has some type of guidance. Laser, radar, wire, something is guiding it. Whereas a rocket is like a bottle rocket. It just goes whoosh. And the Soviet / Russian equipment, rockets, they will fire a bunch of rockets into an area and hope they can saturate an area and blow some stuff up. Whereas the HIMARS is guided. They know exactly where they want to put the rocket, and they will fire a large rocket and land exactly where they want it. It's been wildly effective. Last New Year's, they're telling the Russian soldiers to turn their phones off because you can track it. Well, on New Year's Eve, when it struck midnight, they were watching. They had the networks turned up. They were watching, and 300 cell phones got turned on at the same time in a building. We call that advertising. And they punched off, HIMARS punched off a rocket, dropped it right smack in the middle of the building because of electronic warfare. And they advertise that the Ukrainians have 24 of the HIMARS weapon systems. And there's somebody sitting in an office in Phoenix or Tulsa looking at satellite imagery. And while the Ukrainians are sitting there in their vehicle, all of a sudden a message comes up on the computer screen that says, "Excuse me for a second, sir, could you please let go of the controls and allow me to do something?" And then some of the computer information comes from satellite, and the weapon starts firing at something that's being observed by satellite. That's going on. Warfare is getting to be real tricky. And one of the weapons the HIMARS fires shoots these little tungsten balls they're like BBs. And you've seen it on video. And hits the ground, and you see a bunch of dust kick up. And there's like some tanks over here, and there's some trucks over here, and you see dust. You're like, nothing caught on fire, nothing blew up. You're like, that was a waste of time. If you walk up and look at the vehicles it blew up next to, those little tungsten balls, those little teeny tiny BBs, went completely through it. It went through the engine block. It went through the gas tank. It went through everything. So it looks okay from the distance, but when you walk up to it, it's scrap metal. The leaf spring on a truck, literally the weight sits, they call it leaf because they're stacked. Those tungsten balls will go completely through a leaf spring, like it's not even there. It's just mind-boggling. We've passed off to them 50 caliber machine guns, the M2, the Ma Deuce, and they put it on a mount, and it has little adjustments. Now you can sit there and hold the handles and shoot the butterflies, the triggers, and fire, but they gave them this fancy mount that has this little tiny adjustment that you lay the base plate on it, so it's balanced and it's shooting exactly at the height that you want. And they told them how to calibrate this. And they're sitting out in this area, and they set it up in their position, and they got the 50 caliber aimed at like waist high across this field. And then the fog rolls in, and then the Russians attack. They can't see anything. All they have to do is lay the 50 on that base plate and start sweeping the weapon back and forth, just shooting at waist height. And the 50 caliber, which is still in use in the military, originally came out in the 1920s. But that's how perfect of a weapon, the big 50 caliber. And they have something, the Russians make something like the 50 caliber, but the Ukrainians absolutely love the M2. That's the same weapon different triggers, but like the World War II fighter planes, that's what they had in their wings. The bomber crews on like the B-17s, the B-24s, that's a 50 caliber. It's the same weapon, just the triggers are different on it. Absolutely phenomenal heavy machine. Caliber machine guns. There was, and targets are popping up, and we're firing them. We're good again. Fire little bursts, fire little bursts, fire little bursts. And a very small deer wandered onto the range and went behind a bush. And everybody kind of looked at each other and opened up on the bush and fired burst after burst into the bush. And then the deer promptly walked out from behind the bush and walked back off the range. Not quite sure how that happened. He dropped. We're back. Feed keeps dropping. I am on highway something 19, and we are 29 miles to getting back on the actual interstate, which is where I want to be. Oh, and this is going to sound weird, but in certain instances, it is actually cheaper and more economical for the United States to hand off weapons to the Ukrainians to use than it is to dispose of them. How's that for some weirdness? They have the Patriot anti-aircraft is what it's designed for, but they use it for anti-missile system. They have a 15-year service life. The missiles cost whatever dollars, and after 15 years, they have to take them apart, and they have to pay to have them taken apart. It's cheaper to give it to them and have them fire it off. Same with Stinger missiles and Javelin missiles. And some ammunition. It is cheaper to give it to them than it is to take it apart and dispose of it stateside. As ridiculous as that sounds. Back in the olden days, the military just would bury. That was the answer. Well, they don't get to do that anymore. Instead of sending the Patriots back to Raython, they shipped them overseas. And I keep getting bumped off here. I don't know why that is. It's my gas mileage too. 22.2. So look at it that way. You're sending soon-to-be expired weapons overseas and saving money by sending it overseas. Let them burn it up. And in a roundabout way, when you rotate your stock and you rotate your inventory, your manufacturers make new stuff, and those companies are making money and their employees are working. It's kind of a roundabout way. It's saving money all the way around. Funny way of looking at it, but that's where we're at. Oh, how do you flash it, maybe? Hey, look, another traffic light. 69 degrees. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be able to sleep tonight. Anybody got a topic? Anybody got a question? I got a shoe size? Favorite brand of peanut butter? In 1987, not long after I got to my first unit as an enlisted guy, we went on a reforger exercise. And reforger stands for Return of Forces to Germany. The idea is the Soviets were going to invade. We had to fly over there and pick up weapons and go fight them. So it was like a training exercise. And we did our maneuvers and stuff. We were there for a month. And this was back when you had the East-West German border situation going on. And there was an area where I could get really close to the border. The actual border between East and West Germany was It looked like a hedgestone, like a in the ground hedgestone. And then on our side there was a German flag colored striped pole. That was as close as civilians could get. And then back further was I think it was light blue and white striped pole, which was the closest military people, us, could get. Well, I went past both of those because I'm an idiot. And there was an East German soldier walking on a footpath on the other side of the wall, and we weren't that far apart. I'm talking, we were like 15 feet apart. But I'm just standing there watching. He's got his helmet on, he's got a weapon slung, his head's down, and he's walking. And I'm thinking he's not seeing me because he's looking at the ground. And then when he got across from me, he stopped, turned, and stared right at me. And we're like 15 feet apart staring. And back in the 80s, smoking was really, really common. And in Europe, cigarettes are freakishly expensive. So American cigarettes are real popular, but people over there smoke. Cigarettes were so expensive, people literally rolled their own. But a pack of American cigarettes was a very powerful piece of bribery. And when we went on the exercise, everybody who smoked could carry a carton, and everybody who didn't smoke was carrying a carton for somebody else. So I literally had 10 packs of cigarettes on me, and I've never been a smoker. And when this guy turned towards me, he had these little pins on his lapel. They were little tank pins, I found out later. And I pointed at his pins, and I kind of, grabbed my collar, and he looked down, looked at me, and I opened unbuttoned my pocket, and I started to pull a pack of Marlboros out. And before the pack was completely out of my pocket, this guy dropped his rifle on the ground, undid his pins, and threw them over the fence to me. And I threw the pack of cigarettes to him, and he snatched it up, stuck it in his pocket, grabbed his rifle, put his head down, and started walking again. And this guy's walking off. I'm thinking, this dude has done this before. This is not his first time to the rodeo. That happened a little too naturally. This guy knows the game. And back then, I don't know if they smoked. I don't know. Maybe the world may have changed. But back then, smoking was, it looked like everybody smoked back in the 80s. But that was my one fun adventure on the East-West German border. Mm-hmm. 23 miles. Blah. It's supposed to be getting there at 1 o'clock in the morning. There's a lot of people that are not, old enough to remember, but when the Berlin Wall fell, that was a big deal. That whole thing fell apart. That was a big deal. Now people look at it like it was a footnote. It wasn't. It was a big deal. And there was a correspondent in 1976. There was like a CBS, NBC, one of the big three, correspondent in Moscow, and he said, in the next 10 to 15 years, the Soviet Union's going to go out of business. And what's going to take them out is mass media, because they are not going to be able to keep the information from getting in anymore. People are going to find out what's going on outside of here, and they're going to get pissed. And that all started in, I believe, Romania. How the series of events that got the Eastern Europeans to see what the world, how everybody else was living. They were building a new embassy. They gave them a big plot of land in the middle of town, like a city block. And I think they were assuming they were going to put the embassy in the middle of the block and then put a big fence around it. And instead, they built it on one of the sides in the middle of the block and then left the whole front of the building open. So there wasn't a fence on one side. There was a wall of the building. And then when they were done, they cut a hole in the wall, put up a giant piece of glass, stuck a big screen TV up against the glass with Romanian subtitles and speakers, and turned on American television. So anybody walking down the street could stop and turn. In 1985 or 4 is when this happened. Anybody walking down the street can stop and turn and watch American TV. And they put some cameras out there to keep an eye on the situation. And he said 24 hours a day, there was somebody, at least one person out there. I flew to Frankfurt 6. I was amazed at how closed off and dark the Russian air terminal looked compared to the Western. Oh, yeah, I went to high school with a guy who grew up in West Berlin. And he said West Berlin was a party. There was a wall around music, neon party. He said you could, from his apartment, you could look into East Berlin and there's nothing. There was no movement. There were no cars. There were no people. There were a couple of dim street lights, and that's it. I mean, that was it. He said it was like night and day. You know, you look over there, dead. You look over here, it was like that. So what are the people in East Germany, in East Berlin thinking? Hearing this music and the neon and all the sound, the laughter, and people enjoying life. Because the Germans, they figured in the next war they were going to get just run over and killed. So, hey, you might as well party and have fun now. That was their mindset. That's why they were such party animals and so outgoing. But yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. The difference in the power. It's like right today, look at a satellite photo at night north and South Korea. Same thing. I need job class CDL 2000. Any advice? I need a job class CDL 2000. I have a CDL, a B for straight trucks. I don't know anything about big trucking businesses. I think it's getting a little rough right now. This is me talking. I think I'm kind of eyeballing this. I think I'm averaging about 1,500 a week right now doing this. This week is going to be a little over 2,200 because of this drive right here. You know, that's just me and my van. The big trucks, I've never been in the big truck business, so I don't know. I couldn't tell you who to sign on with or who to go with. I know, I was talking about this earlier today. I had a guy in a parking lot I was BSing with. He owned his own trucking company. He had 3 trucks. He had his own MC number. He said he sold his truck and turned his number back in. He said, I can't do this anymore. So it's right now, big truck is a little soft. But if you're asking me for a recommendation where to go, I don't know what to tell you because I'm not in that. I don't do the big truck thing. Now, if you're driving a big truck and you're making money and you're making the payments. Next week or two, you're not driving, but you're still making the payments. And that's the problem. But I don't know what to tell you. I do know there was in this line of work and what I do, uh, expediting, there was a company advertising for a team, which I don't want to sit in here with some dude, I don't know, that was running between Chicago and Laredo. They wanted a team because the van never stops. Mercedes van. It's Chicago, Laredo, Chicago, Laredo, Chicago. I get tired of that after a while. With absolutely no downtime, sit next to some dudes you don't know, like living in a phone booth with them. Yeah, that would get old real quick. But they're just going to burn you up, and then they're going to replace you and put somebody else in the seat. I really can't give you advice on a big trucking because I'm not in that business. I was talking about it earlier. If you want to try expediting, the easiest and cheapest way to do it is become a fleet driver. You're driving somebody else's van and you're splitting the load money with them. And the company I work for does that. They have, I would say, an overwhelming percentage of the people who work for the company I'm with are fleet drivers. When I went through my little 1-day orientation class, there were 5 of us, and the other 4 guys were fleet drivers. And that's if you want to see if you enjoy the job, because it doesn't make sense to go out and spend the money to buy a van and to find out you don't like the job or you're not comfortable being on the road all the time. People have done that, found out the hard way. I've done this before, so I know what I'm up against, so I don't mind doing it. This is kind of relaxing for me. 16 miles to my turn. Bleh. Yeah, I went out and got my CDL Class B so I could get a job. So I could get a job driving a garbage truck in my town. The trucks that have that mechanical arm that reach out to the side and grab the trash can and flip it over your shoulder. And they're like, "Oh my God, yeah, you go get your Class B with your automatic endorsement, and oh, they'll hire anybody with a pulse." Well, apparently I'm dead because I applied and reapplied, and then I applied for other areas of the same company. And then I got ignored, and that was frustrating because that cost me $3,000 for a license I don't use. You see what this guy's doing? We're going down a hill, and this truck in front of me is riding his brakes. Dude, that's how you smoke your brakes. Use your transmission. Bernie Perestroika, my wife's company, hosted Russian attorney. She arranged for them to go to Walmart, local grocery stores. They can't read. They freaked out. That happened in the early '80s in Houston when not Yeltsin. There was Gorby and Yeltsin. Yeltsin visited Houston in the early '80s for some reason. They were like taking him to NASA or somewhere, and he said, "I want to see a grocery store," and they just pulled into a random Randall's, which is a brand name down here, Randall's grocery store, and he walked around. And same thing, his tongue was hanging open. He couldn't understand it. It is just readily available. That exact same thing happened. Uh, Here's something. Fort Carson in Colorado Springs, where I was stationed, uh, right across the street's NORAD. It's built into the mountain. It's like 3 mountain ranges, and one of the pilots in our unit was he was Russian. His name was Alexis, and he had a really long last name, started with a G. We called him G Monster. And this is right about the time the Soviet Union was starting to go out of business, so they weren't overly concerned, but they invited some of these Soviet guys to come over and see NORAD. I don't know why. And they took him as the translator because they didn't have one available for some reason. So he got to get a tour of NORAD. And he said the Russian guys, there was a handful of them, he goes, they were acting physically like they were asking questions, and all they wanted to know was, where are the strip clubs? You know, how do you find women? That's all they couldn't have cared less about NORAD. Cheap blue jeans, how badly yeah, the blue jeans thing. Yeah, that's an international, that's an absolute international commodity, blue jeans. But he said he came back and he was talking about NORAD. Cheyenne Mountain, yes. Cheyenne Mountain, NORAD. Something that I thought was weird is every once in a while the radio would light up and they would put a TFR, a restriction over the mountain. Now you could fly over NORAD all day long and there was nothing up there. It was just a mountaintop. You couldn't go up there physically, but you could fly over. Then all of a sudden they would announce a TFR's in place, and we walked outside because we could see it. It's only a few miles away, and an antenna would come out of the rooftop this one day. It was like it must have been 3-4 feet diameter and maybe 200 feet tall. This giant antenna poked up, and it was up in the air for like 15 minutes and it disappeared. The TFR closed, so us rubbernecks jumped on our helicopters, took off, and we flew over there. If you fly around the top of the mountain, there was no indication of where that antenna came from. There was no parking or building or hatch or anything. Get pinched off here. All right. Up here we go again. More hills. Whee! Yeah, Cheyenne Mountain Complex. Yeah, that's literally across the street from the airfield. The main Fort Carson's over here. Then you drive like 6, 7 miles way over to the west where the Gray Army Airfield was. Not Gray. What was it called? I don't remember that. That's Fort. I don't remember the name of the airbase anymore I was at. But the airfield's way over here, and it's really close to the Cheyenne Mountain area. He goes getting off. Cool. Yeah, I never got to go in there because nobody loves me. How we knew the Cobra was on its last legs is I graduated flight school class. I got double lung pneumonia. I got bumped backwards. I graduated class 9001. Class 9002 was the last Cobra class. That kind of tells you the writings on the wall. So my MOS in the Army, which was 152 Golf, if you literally Google MOS space 152 letter G, it'll pop up. That doesn't even exist anymore. They totally retired it. I think Florida has a handful of Cobras. They call them Firehawks for firefighting because you strip out all the armor out of it and the weapon systems, and they get really light. I mean, the seats in that aircraft weigh 200 pounds apiece because of armor. Oh, yeah. Storage car. Yeah, well, my wife and I went out there. We rented a Turo car and drove up over into Colorado Springs. We flew. Denver got the car, went up over, went to Grand Junction. Then we went down to Cortez, down along the western side, and went to see Mesa Verde. That's that. What do you want to call it? Indian cave complex that's under that rock outcropping. You've probably seen pictures of. That place was occupied for, I think they said 6,000 years or something. And then in the 1300s, the area had a dry spell. They couldn't grow a crop and they packed up and left. And then like in 1860, somebody was walking around, came over the hill, looked down and went, oh, what's this? So it sat there for like 600 years, lost to history. And then somebody found it. But Google that, Mesa Verde, Berde. That's how it's spelled. Yeah, 70 is a trip. I like that highway. Friday afternoon, everybody gets off work. Everybody goes up that mountain. That when I was doing my Cannonball, that was something I had to look into because I contacted Colorado DOT and said, what are the peak traffic times? And it was part of my research. And it's a madhouse going up there till on Saturday. It's a madhouse till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I had to time my crossing around all that stuff. If you ever get to Grand Junction, there's a restaurant in town called the Rock Slide. Go in there and have a buffalo burger. It's the best bite of hamburger meat you'll ever have in your life. Somewhere in my playlist, I actually took a video of the place and of the meal. And then I took the time to send it to my wife to make her jealous because she's had a buffalo burger before. And I was in the band, so she wasn't with me. Oh, by the way, did you know that if you have a good meal and your spouse isn't with you, it's cheating? It's a new thing I found out. Oh, you have eaten there. Oh, right on. Yeah, we always, the only thing we go there for a buffalo burger. They make their own beer. They have like a brewery there. I'm not a drinker, but they have their own little brewery inside the back of it. But I do have a video. It's probably off. It's probably on one called the Scenic Route. It was eating there. So mileage 22.3. Okay. And that was the first time I ever tried that. A friend of mine, a guy I worked for and flew with for years and years and years. He's at this point, he's in his 70s. He works as a flight instructor, and he's really into hunting. And he got to go. He's a bucket list. Everybody's got their own. His bucket list was to buffalo because they've gotten the herds back up to the point where they can actually hunt them. And he got one. He said it was just an amazing thrill. And he said it took 2 days to clean it. He said, "How much meat did you get?" And he said 700 pounds. Woo! Yeah, I like Grand Junction. That's a neat area. And a few years back, we had come somewhat close to moving there. And again, I think COVID got in the way. And then the housing prices there went bonkers like they did everywhere else. And it kind of shut that thing down. To move there's a little weird because the way they zone neighborhoods, you can have a really nice house next to a something left over from the 70s, and it's really odd how they have houses weren't. It's like they didn't master plan it. It was like everybody was just kind of doing their own thing. We drove around and tried to find an area that was kind of to our liking, and we were having trouble finding anything that was consistent. But it's a nice area, and they grow peaches up there and other fruits, but peaches is a big thing. And you go, how do you find the proper soil to grow peaches up in the high desert? And the guy said, back in the day, there was a volcano that went boom, and it blew all the soil out, and it all landed in that area. And they've got a good water supply going through, and this real fertile soil sitting up in this area, where all the way around there, the soil is terrible. And they can grow peaches right there, right next door. And I think the town's called Parachute. It's a little bit to the east. It's touching uh, Grand Junction, but it's a little to the east. They have vineyards and all kinds of stuff there. It's just kind of like a bizarre little trade. But when the wife and I went up to the Wyoming Idaho border to pick up that helicopter, we flew from the border to Rawlins, Wyoming, took on fuel, then flew to Grand Junction, spent the night. And I can't remember. I think it's 6,000 feet or something. And this little helicopter took off, and I'm heading towards the Rockies, and I'm trying to climb. And you're flying, you trade altitude for airspeed and airspeed for altitude. And we were just kind of thumbing along at like 65 knots, and we weren't getting anywhere. Well, agriculture, and my California has so much erosion. Oh yeah, that again as a little kid in the 70s in California, they were building houses in the valleys where the soil was good for plants and good for growing, and leaving the mountainsides empty. And it's like, why don't you build houses on the sides of these mountains? It's kind of decorative and kind of a cool way to live, and leave the valleys alone where all the good soil is. Like, nope, 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 nope. It's more convenient to put them down here. Like, okay, whatever, whatever. Oh, and Grand Junction to the west, there's called the Redlands. It's like a town that's rubbing it. That's the area that we thought was kind of cool. Where's my turn? 1.7. I got 22.4. Getting better, getting better. Tell you what, if I had a job where I just drove from Denver to Grand Junction or Grand Junction, Denver and back every day, I'd be a happy person. Ironically, when I did my Cannonball, one of the one of the aspects of cannonballing is you need to have witnesses. there is an app, a phone app called Glimpse, Glympse, Glimpse, and you can send a quote glimpse to somebody anywhere from 50 minutes to 12 hours, and it shows you where you are. And if you're in a car, it shows you how fast you're going. Yeah, it's true. Wintertime be a little challenging. And it shows you how fast you're going. And you give, when you're doing a cannonball, you give a glimpse to a handful of people that are within the community, and they could certify that, yes, you were there doing this drive. You know, you could get a white Porsche and drive off from the red ball, go to the airport, get on a plane, fly to California, and get in another white Porsche and drive up to the finish line and say, "Here I am." I don't think anybody's actually done that, but the point is, you need to have proof. You know, it's kind of like the I was a Navy SEAL people. You know, we're going to need a little evidence. So you have to certify your run. And I gave a glimpse to a handful of people, including my mother. Not a good idea. And she said on the western side of 70 in Colorado, at one time, I was doing, again, the governor on the car was 115. I didn't know about it. She said there was a 3 or 4 minute period of time on 70 in Colorado. I was doing 115 and held it there in the mountains because there was a straightaway for it. And it was one of the few places I had that opportunity. Okay, what do we got here? Hold on a sec. Oh, what's this guy doing? Did you move over? He moved over. Here we go. Back up to speed. Temperature glitch though. Says did fail to Denver. Winter while changing this auto. Yeah, oh God. You know, if you look back, you'll see monumental snowstorms. You know, the storm of this, the hurricane of that. They had in Colorado what went down as the blizzard of '82. It happened on Christmas Eve. It snowed 2 feet per hour for an accumulation of 9 feet overnight. It just shut the state down. We were at church that night. But church came outside and went, "What just happened?" And it completely shut the state down. You know how those big snow plows will drive down the highway with the scooper and it just blowing snow out of the way? That wasn't happening. They had to use a front loader and take bites out of it one at a time to clear the highways. Absolute insanity. That happened. Blizzard of '82. That was the worst one we ever experienced. It was disastrously bad. And that's when I found out there's a trick. When they have bad snowstorms, cattle in Colorado, they're living out on the range, and the owners can't get to them to feed them. They can't forage because they can't get to the ground, and they can't get to them to feed them. And that's where the National Guard comes in, and they literally fly C-130s over ranches and bomb bales of hay. That happened in Truckee, down 80 Donner Pass. Yeah, Truckee. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. There was too much snow, you couldn't get through it. But the National Guard come out with their C-130s and bombed cattle with hay bales. And I thought about that because I was about 13, 14, 40, Piper Cub, and he said, "Let me show you something." And we flew over a field that had some cattle. And we just flew by real low, going slow. And we turned around. He goes, "Watch what all the cattle do." We turned back, and all the cattle were following the line that the aircraft flew. Because in their mind, when something flies low over them, an airplane, magic food falls from the sky. So they'll run in the direction of the plane looking for whatever fell out of it. They've literally been trained for that. And I was like, and then he told me the story behind it. I'm like, look, I'm 13. I'm like, dude, that is so cool. We were flying in that little plane, and it's carbureted. It's real simple. The Piper Cub, it's got a carburetor on it. and there's a door on the side that controls how much, on the side of the motor, that controls how much air gets to the motor. You pull it in, pull it out a little bit. We were flying along one day, and the wiring to that little door broke. And the door slammed shut, and the aircraft went to idle. Guess what? You're landing, whether or not you want to or not. We just slowly settled out of the sky and landed on a road, and he got out, fixed the wire, and we took back off again. But I remember it was like, we're landing. Why? Because the motor won't go above idle. Oh, okay. So it is, hold on a second. It's 11:45 here local. I'm showing about an hour and 15 minutes. Turning off to my destination. And again, I like driving at night because of this right here. Lucerne from Washington all the way down to Pacifica is a great drive. I grew up near where Piper's factory was. Okay, all right, that's cool. Yeah, the Piper Cub's a classic, wonderful aircraft too. There's a lot of good drives. The traffic is kind of coming to a head. Let's see, Clarksburg, Morgantown, 92. That's neat. That's why back in June, my wife and I did that train ride because we really don't have a lot of experience with the extreme northern states. So hopping on a train and going Chicago to Seattle up there was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed the scenery, seeing all the stuff that we saw out there. Really enjoyed that. People work their entire lives and they retire and then they go, okay, now it's time to travel. Well, sometimes you can't physically. Sometimes you don't make it there. You know what I mean? I've watched that happen. I knew a guy that he was going to push retirement. He was going to go to 68, going to go all the way to 68. I'll get full retirement. And he did. He went to 68, got his full retirement. He made it 89 days, and it was over. Beechcraft Bonanza. That's a great train ride trip. Yeah, it was the longest one I could find. It's called the Empire Builder. I got out their map, took a look at it. Yeah, the Bonanza. What's funny is to the untrained eye, a 1947 Beechcraft Bonanza looks like a 1997 Beechcraft Bonanza. They didn't really change anything. The electronics are different, but it's the same airframe. It's just basic, simple aircraft. You familiar with the P-51 Mustang? Those were supercharged engines, like a lot of the fighter planes of the era for altitude. And the post-war ones, aircraft people buy, they don't put superchargers on them because the engines literally would only last 80 hours and they get worn out. In combat, nobody cared because you have all military aircraft have this. You have idle, you have cruise, you have maximum power, and then you have what's called military power. And military power is beyond maximum power that's actually causing damage to the engine on a small scale, but it's actually damaging the motor. But if your options are die or damage the engine, we're going to go for damage the engine. That's why those motors, when they were flying in Europe, were only good for about 80 hours. That's it. So the ones you see flying around, they don't operate them like that. 51 with them. Wow. The Rolls Royce with the supercharger. There was a guy in Galveston here about 20 years ago. Had a P-51. He flew it. He had a ball flying it. And then some guy offered to build him an engine to spec back during the war. And it was like $300,000. He said, you're going to tear it up. And, it's going to cost a lot of money to fix, but it'll be a second engine. So he built it. He put the supercharger on it. And they bolted in the aircraft they tested. That guy went out and disappeared and flew. He was gone for a while. And he came back and landed. And look on his face. He said, worth every dime of the $300,000 he had to spend on that. Said it was, you get that thing into a climb, and you hit alcohol injection and stuff, and squirted, and he said it was just mind-boggling powerful. There's my favorite place in the whole wide world, YouTube. There's a YouTube video about a guy, a pilot during the war. The guy died a few years ago, and I heard he's on the show on the History Channel telling a war story. He's a P-51 pilot, and while he's sitting there telling the story, I've actually heard him tell that story to my face back in 1982 when I worked at the downtown Fort Collins Airport. Worked for a guy called Ray Middleton, QG Aviation. I don't think he's around anymore, but he restored old fighter planes, and I worked for him for one summer. And I heard the story, but what he was saying didn't make sense to a 14-year-old. And then I'm watching him on TV. It's the same guy. He's like way older, because he was like in his 50s back then. Now he was like 80 something. And I'm watching this thing on the History Channel. Going, wait a minute, I've heard this before. This is interesting. And he was being chased out of the sky by call it a honcho, an extremely good pilot. I shot videos of a P-38 San Marcos, Texas. Awesome bird. Oh, that's a beautiful airframe. Absolutely beautiful. When the civilian models, the civilian model of the P-38, remember there's 450 calibers and a 20 millimeter cannon in the nose. The civilian model doesn't have the weapons. They have to put blocks of lead in the nose to keep the aircraft balanced. Well, this guy again, you trade altitude for airspeed, airspeed for altitude. He's being chased by a guy in a 109, and he's spiraling out of the sky. He's in a right-hand turn, and he's pulling 4Gs, kind of corkscrewing out of the sky. And this German, he said somehow this German's keeping up with him. He said he really shouldn't have been able to, but he was. And when they get their guns around on you, he's trying to, in a turn, if you're pointing your weapon at somebody, you're not going to hit him. It's going to go behind him. So they say they don't put the guns on you. They put the guns through you. Well, he could see in his mirror the guy was starting to work his nose in front of him, and he could fire a burst, and it's over. And this guy invented a maneuver, and he called it something like an inverted vertical reversement. So if you understand aerodynamics, he's almost sideways, so like laying on your side on your right shoulder. He's pulling the stick hard. He's pulling 4Gs. He snapped the stick into his gut, which stalled the aircraft. Completely stalled. It's no longer flying. Stomped down pedal so the nose pitched down, and then he threw the stick forward and then neutralizes the pedal. So the aircraft stalls, nose down, and then stands straight up in the air, nose down, spins the torque of the propeller, turns the aircraft around backwards, and it falls straight down out of the sky. It says, whoa. Did you see that? Something just flashed into my hood from the left. Whoa. And the aircraft just stalled and flipped and fell out of the sky, but it's gone. An aerodynamic impossibility, and they show the diagram of it. I had to watch it a couple of times to go, dude. Hey, Google Stingwin says hi. Hold on a second. Got to trim and out of here. No guns. The USAF flew the P-38. Kelly Johnson, I've heard of him. Kelly Johnson. Hey, Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. These are my bucket headlights that I like. But I can't use them. Yeah, and there's a segment on that. If you look up P-51 Mustang, the thumbnail will be animation. The P-51's flying away from you, and the background's kind of green. You get in there around the 10-minute mark. The guy's name is Cabrera. You watch that video of that maneuver he did, and it's mind-boggling. I got a wall of cars coming up on me all of a sudden. Where our sheep are nervous. Where the men are men and the sheep are nervous. I've heard that. And we're back again. Lost my feet. I guess still getting 22.4 miles per gallon. Still doing good here. I've probably got about 75 miles to go. How was she? I've said that about people. They go, well, how's that guy? Well, he's been pretty cocky since the goat didn't press charges. Kind of let that hang. And they even had the recording of it saying, no, whatever, right? It's like, why do cowboys tuck their pant legs in so the sheep don't get away? Oop, coasting. Ooh, and bucket lights. A lot of people put auxiliary lights on these vans. I don't see why. Those ropers. Dude. I didn't realize this, but about an hour ago, I went over a mountain pass. It was 3,200 feet, which isn't, the Alps, but still, that's a lot higher up than I thought this area went to. I didn't realize it's that far. We used to fire, I was talking about the tank range at Fort Hood. And they would have trouble with the targets. Range control would say, hold on, hold your position, and you're using thermal sights. And thermal sights, anything that's giving off heat shows up, and it's not a blur. It's pretty crisp what you're looking at. You could be looking 2 miles away and watch a rabbit come out of a hole and run and go into another hole. And you can tell it's a rabbit 2 miles away. I mean, it's very precise. So at the range, you're looking at targets that are always in the distance. There's nothing really close up. Small problem with Fort Hood is it was an open range, which means there were cattle wandering around here and there. And we're in a dug-in position, like a little dug trench. And they're messing with the targets, and you've been awake way too long. Everybody's tired. I'm laying there laying against the sights. And a cow walked up in front of the tank. I mean, right in front of the tank with the horns. So instead of seeing a little tiny white dot in the distance, I see Godzilla with horns stand up right in front of the vehicle. And in the sights, it's a blur. It looks like Satan just appeared with the big horns, and it was like, what in my face? Scared the ever-living crap out of me. I'm kind of looking through the sight, but I'm kind of asleep, and I'm what? And I yelled. But the guy on top, the tank commander at the time, I said, what? I said, got a flashlight, look in front of the tank, and there's a cow standing right in front of the tank looking around like, what you doing? Load up, what? Mine vest in Denver off my 70. Oh, yeah. Yeah, when talk about altitude sickness. I flew that when my wife and I brought the mighty Jet Ranger back. The higher up you get, the aircraft starts running hotter. So you have to start reducing power. When the engine's already making less power, and the rotor blade is biting less air, so it's becoming less and less efficient. And we're going up over. We ended up crossing the Rockies at a place called Teddy's Peak, way above the timberline. And part of my flight training is they put us in an altitude chamber. So they took us to like 25,000 feet. And what they're doing is they want you to feel the effect of altitude. And there's a handful of ways people feel it. And you probably were exposed to it for an extended period. By the way, they make little oxygen cans you can buy. It's air in an aluminum can with a knot. You just put it, you pull the trigger, you get like 200 hits out of it. We brought those with us when we went up there this last time. But we're in the Mighty Jet Ranger, and we're getting ready to go over this peak. And we were at, I think the peak was 12,400 or something like that, right there with the clouds. And right as we were getting close to it, my fingertips started tingling, which is the feeling I get. And I went, oh, this isn't good. And I turned to my wife to explain to her what I was feeling, and her tongue was hanging out of her mouth. She was already gone. I went, oh, never mind. And we went over that little peak, and then it was a drop off on the other side, going towards Raton, New Mexico. Dumped the power, and we just fell down around 8,000 feet. She came back alive again. She goes, oh, that was such a weird feeling. I could hear you talking, but I couldn't understand what you were saying. Blah, 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 blah. But it's just when I turned to say, hey, we're getting really high, and she's just over there. That would have been a good photograph. Now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, it's a little aluminum can, and it has like a mouthpiece on the top and a trigger on the side, and you literally put it on your mouth and seal it, and then pull the trigger and take a big hit, and you will feel like dynamite immediately. It only takes one hit of oxygen to do that. And the bottles we bought had, I believe, like 200 hits in it. And when we went on this trip, because I knew we were going to be up in the mountains and we're not used to it, so we had that oxygen tank. And I tell you what, you really did feel good. You hit it. Video. Oh, wait a minute. And I had to watch a video about altitude sickness supply online. Oh, right on. Yeah, yeah, it'll get to you. There are there's uh, another phenomenon that happens in Colorado that people don't think about is Aspen is a target for people that want to go play and rich people. And aircraft have limitations about payload and whatnot. But whoa, you're right rear. But when you get it says your max, I'm making up numbers, your max payload's like 3,000 pounds. You get it, the aircraft can't weigh more than 3,000 pounds. Takeoff weight, but its landing weight's only 2,700 pounds because it'll sit there and take off at 3,000. But if you land at 3,000, that at the moment that the wheels hit the runway, it's too heavy. That bam, it's like jumping up in the air and landing. It's too much weight on contact. Well, people fly down at sea level where the air is really dense, and they'll fly their aircraft overloading. They do it all the time. It's not uncommon in aviation. And then they get used to it and get away with it. These guys will be flying, they call them California pilots, will fly in California and get away with murder. And then they say, hey, we're going on vacation. We're going to Aspen. And they load the aircraft the same way. Going down the minimum, wait a minute, 10,000 foot. Felt great. Oh, yeah, much better. Like I said, those little oxygen cans. And so these pilots, they come up to Aspen and they overload their plane at sea level, fly to Aspen, their twin engine, whatever, and they land. And then they go to leave. That's they got a 6-passenger plane. There's 8 people in. They're sitting in the aisles and they're totally overloaded, which they can get away with in California or in Aspen. You're at like 7,500 feet. Guess what? Can the airport in Aspen? If you're taking off to the north, there's a golf course right there. And they had so many planes taking off and not being able to fly, it basically belly flopping into the golf course, that they have a person who literally sits at the golf course and watches light planes take off, and he blows a horn or a buzzer or something to warn golfers, okay, there's a plane taking off. Stop what you're doing and see if he makes it. And people take off, fly across the road, bam, land on the fourth fairway or whatever, because your plane can't do it. But it's pretty sad when you have to have somebody assigned to wait for a plane crash to happen. Ooh, rest area. Here we go. I need to pull in here because I need to check. I need to get water. I'm out of water at this point. I'm going to let this run again. Yeah, ouch. I agree. I'm going to let the camera run again, but I'm going to jump out and try to get my water bottles filled up because I'm completely out of water, which I have never been in this position before. So anybody hanging on, give me a minute and I'll jump and go do this and come right back. Oh, look at the moon. I don't know if you can see that. Oh, it's gone. That was quick. Oh, there's a mountain right there. Couldn't see that at first. I'm going to pull in here. I'm going to leave it running. I'm going to turn the lights off. And I'm going to run in with my two little bottles here and try to fill up. That last rest area literally did not have a water fountain. How do you do that? Thanks for staying with me, everyone. Helps me stay awake. 81. I'm on 79 at this point. I told the GPS to start dodging toll roads. I am on 79 rest area next right. Where is it? Where is it? Getting close. Here we go. There's the moon. It's kind of hard to see in the camera, but it's there. Come on, where's my? There it is. Downshift, downshift. Reel that horsepower in. Oh, beast. Okay. Awesome. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Don't back up. Oh, thank you. Do, 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 do. All right. And do. Yeah, let me know how that works out for you. I shall return in a minute. Do, do. Ah. And I'm back. Oh. All right, I'm back. Still didn't have the fancy refill, but I got one of my bottles filled up, so I feel good. I'm probably, whoa. Who's the backup camera? Is it me, or have we reached a place in society where you get in a car that doesn't have a backup camera and you get a case of the ass about it? Because I certainly do. Trucks, cars. Okay, go back up to speed. Let's see, 14. It is roughly an hour is what it's saying to get to Morgantown. Whew. Yeah, I'm on 79 right now. I get up to cruise speed here. Coming up, down. Think you do. There we go. US 19 outbound. Sheet here, borderline. Yeah, that's why it took me out. I dodged the last two tolls again, nickel and dimes. Oh, ugh. Cheat Lake. Yeah, as a matter of fact, that's the name. I was looking on the map. It literally is called Cheat Lake. That's where I was trying to figure out where it was on the map earlier. That's why I picked the place in Pilot there. It's as close as I can get to the little town I'm going to here in the morning. So I'll get a few hours of sleep and then I can just jump back in and boogie up there. They want it there at 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't think there's going to be anybody there tonight, but I'll get up there earlier than that. Highway 86, Interstate 86 that goes through New York, Pennsylvania. You go across the border into New York going eastbound, and there's a rest area. You cross a bridge by a lake, and on the right there's a rest area. Absolutely gorgeous. I took a video of that place on the lake. Beautiful building, beautiful parking lot, lawns, going down a slope of a hill to the water. Absolutely gorgeous. They really outdid themselves when they built that rest area. Absolutely gorgeous. Uh, can you call them? I actually don't get a phone number to the end user. If I have a problem, I have to call dispatch, and then they call the customer, who then calls the person who's getting the part, which may be another person. That they don't let us communicate directly with them. I guess we're a little too much knuckle draggers or something. But if I get there and I can't find who I'm looking for, or the address isn't working, what I've done is I'll put it in the GPS. You get there and you look around, you go, this ain't working. You put it in Waze, and it may give you a slightly different address or a slightly different location. And then if that doesn't work, you go back into Waze and you put the name of the business. That gives you a different location. I mean, that's just the way they do it. But you got to realize there's a lot of people doing this job that are kind of get out your banjo, ring, ding, 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 ding. They're not couth, and they don't want them doing or saying something to piss off a customer, because some of these guys aren't, they don't have the political way of doing things. And that's probably happened in the past. And that's probably why they did that. Somebody got mad or somebody was throwing a fit, stuff like, yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's probably happened. Let me tell you another rule that came into being. If you're flying out in the Gulf off Louisiana or Texas and you're landing on a platform and there is a crane in operation, the crane operator has to physically get out of the crane before you can land. Why do they have that rule? Because enough guys running a crane, not looking around, have probably taken a crane cable and moved it into a spinning helicopter. But it probably had to happen a handful of times before they changed the rules, where it's not that he can't operate the controls, he can't even be in the crane control area whatsoever. I mean, but how many times did you have to do that before they changed the rules? So they probably ran into problems where some bonehead said something stupid, pissed off somebody, and then they said, we'll never use you again. You know what I mean? Like that. That probably happened. What do you got here? Set. Where we go? A little bit of air. Tell you what. I'll just slow up a little bit here. Something because the road's getting tight. Oh yeah. You ever had one of those days where everything starts going wrong, and then it just starts piling on, and at some point you just start laughing because you have to. You just start laughing and just go, "This can't be happening." It actually becomes funny after a while. I've had that happen to me a few times. They say if things are gonna fall apart, or you're gonna lose big and get it all out of your system. Yeah, I don't fall back to cry. I just start laughing. Uh, this little town in where the heck is a highway there? There's where we're going in New York, the little tiny town. It has one traffic light, and back in the '80s, when my uncle was doing a kind of a hot shot thing, he had this really nice truck. It was built from a '67 Ford 1 ton. It was all modified to carry a fifth wheel trailer. And the town has one little restaurant in it. And this is back in the day when people would have their rifle in a rifle rack, which do that now. You shot full of holes by the police, but he had a 22 rifle in a rifle rack. And we're in the one restaurant in town. And it turns out later a truck driver was wired on whatever it is they used to take back then to stay awake. And he came into town where the speed drops. He was doing like 75 miles an hour. He came into town and basically destroyed every car for like 2 blocks, took out everybody. And the the vehicle that stopped the truck was his. And it slammed into his truck. We didn't know this at the time, but it wrapped it around a telephone pole and made it into an origami pretzel. But we could hear and feel the concussions of the impact while we're sitting in the restaurant. That boom, 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 boom. And a couple seconds later, that 22 rifle came tumbling down the street, slid to a stop in front of the restaurant, like a movie scene. And he looked down at that and he went, "That's not a good sign." We go outside. His truck is halfway up the telephone pole, all twisted up, and the rifle was destroyed. And he kind of made a joke out of it. And then he went and quickly got a bunch of photographs, because he's my uncle and he's an asshole. And he took a bunch of photographs and got crutches, and he got a leg brace and a neck brace. And he went to every single place that ever worked on that truck with the photographs. And he goes, "Remember that suspension work you did on my truck?" And you just watch him start to panic. He goes, "I just kidding." Then he'd run to the next shop. "Remember that brake job you did?" "Just kidding." Just run off being a jackass. But he didn't get upset about it. And as a kid, I would have gotten upset about it because I was a teenager. And that kind of taught me, if something big happens, you know, why is freaking out? That's not going to help. But fan hard rock for RV double A. Phantom of fan. Yeah, yeah, agreed. Somebody coming up on me in a hurry. And big lights. Oh. One of the things I considered doing with the wife here on retirement is getting an RV. They talk about van life. Well, I'm out here kind of doing the van life, and it's not quite as fun as it seems. On videos, it looks great. I think actually living in an RV would get tiring after a while. And basically, it's expensive. Fuel, driving constantly, I think it would get pricey. Sorry, I'm not watching on the screen right now. I'm watching the road here. There's the moon again. Whoop. Lights down, sorry. Lights up. Yeah, it's showing 54 miles to Morgantown, and then I'm going to have to dial up my destination. All flush and fully tricked out. Oh, I've seen some insanely beautiful RVs, but they're like way outside my price range. I was at the North Las Vegas airport where I used to fly out of, and there was a guy standing in front of a giant hangar having a conversation with somebody, and behind him was a twin-engine airplane, a $500,000 RV, and some kind of supercar. And he was about 50 years old. And my thoughts that went through my brain were, that guy made a bunch of really good decisions in life. Because those were just his toys. Oh, he had the one that's kind of a bus. It's basically a bus, and it's like the super duper extra premium deluxe flashing lights, and it was like the super one. Yeah, but it was like, But then he had the twin engine plane and the supercar. So I was like, yeah, that guy's he's got money. 22.2. Oh, only 360. Oh, phew, getting two of them. Another trick to expediting I learned when I bought this van. It'd been used. We went back and forth from Oklahoma to Houston. I don't know what they were doing with it. I don't know, hauling dead bodies or drugs or something. But tires on it were pretty bad. There's not, you know, being abused just from wear and tear. The tires start to lose their tread. It's got gambler as possible. And I was going to put tires on this thing, and I got pretty good ones. And I called discount, and it was just a pinch over $1,000 to put four tires on it. And then I found they said call this guy, and it was a tire shop. The guy did it out of an old box truck, and he had no inventory. You had to tell him what you needed. He would go get it, and the next day he would show up at your house with the tires on your vehicle. But he didn't have the overhead of inventory. He didn't have a storefront. He didn't have employees. He didn't have a business office. He just had a little shed building on the side of his house and this little kind of like a U-Haul, smaller U-Haul box truck. And he did the $1,000 tires I was getting ready to put on. He did the exact same thing for $600 turnkey. So I learned right then, look for a mobile tire service that can beat the crap out of basically anybody. So that saved me $600, and now I've got 40-something thousand miles on these tires. And they're still working, but they're starting to look a little long in the tooth. So probably in the next 2-3 months, I'm going to have to put another set of tires on this thing. Yeah, like I said, the guy doesn't have any overhead. He doesn't stock his shelves. He literally doesn't sit on anything. So he goes and buys his wholesale price, and he says, "Here, I get you these, or these." And I said, "Well, give me the good ones." $600. I went, literally 40% off. I'm like, I'll take it. So I'll probably use him again. I mean, why not? He's got the compressor, he's got the balancing equipment, he's got everything in this truck. He just shows up and goes, bing, bang, boom, he's done. Thank you. Have a nice day. 49 miles. 222. Why keep inventory you might sell? Yeah, exactly. There's no risk to him. There's no risk to have him sitting there. So he's got the distributor he buys from, the wholesaler, whatever. Let's say he's got two cars to do, 8 tires. He goes, picks them up, does them, and then he waits for the next phone call. And like I said, no overhead, no building, no shop, no nothing. And no commercial insurance, no 401k plans for his employees. He's a one-man show. Exactly. Brilliant business plan. I also knew a guy, he was one of the customers of the shop I was working at temporarily, where my very small social circle is located. It's in Montgomery, Texas, called American Muscle. They build show cars and classic cars and whatnot. And I've made a handful of videos from there. When I go in and they've got something fun to look at, I'll film it, talk about it, show what they did to it and stuff. It's just kind of a side thing. And you meet some of his customers. And one of the guys owns exact thing Georgia show. One of the guys owns an industrial recycling business. Talking about saving pop cans and copper wire. This guy does it on an industrial level, and he had a clump of warehouses that were like all different designs and styles, but somehow they were all attached. You could have filmed a great slasher movie in there because there was so many places to hide. Oh, I-45. No, American Muscle is in Montgomery, which is go to Conroe and turn west about 10 miles. You can look it up. American Muscle. It's a kind of a hidden shop, but it's premium maintenance and restoration they do there. And I had to go down there to pick something up or deliver something. The guy gave me a tour of his factory. Like I said, the place went on forever. And they were tearing up buildings and stuff. And he had these huge boxes full of aluminum and copper and stainless and whatnot. And he would sit on it. Oh, good God Almighty! Yeah, he had enough money to buy all these toy cars and stuff and have built. And he had a box, and it was full of copper, big, fat, like 2-inch diameter copper wire they got out of something. I went, wow, there's a lot of money sitting there. And he gets out his calculator and he goes, well, today's rate, that box is worth $12,000. And he had like a whole line of them. And he said, but the prices go up in the fall or something. So he was sitting on it. Like, huh, that's kind of cool. And all these old buildings had big, massive copper and aluminum wiring in them. And he had a little crew of guys in there that were working on it, cutting it up, separating it. It was just, to me, it was fascinating. But you don't think of recycling on an industrial level. You think of it on an individual level. Yeah, Austin. Yeah, Austin's gotten really weird the last few years. That's kind of where the California club moved to. And anywhere the California crowd goes, they kind of bring their politics with them. And it usually causes problems. So Austin is the one place in Texas where you have that kind of a setup. It's a beautiful city. Yes, exactly. California. I've never understood that. Why does somebody move or migrate to a different area to escape whatever it is they're trying to escape, and then they bring that with them? They want to do it again. Well, what was the whole point? Yeah, I left as a kid. I left California. It was 1980. I was 12. The only time I've been back there was the Cannonball. Oh, excuse me. I've been back there since then. I Cannonball in 20 and in 23 we went on a trip. I wanted to go to the MASH film location, which we did. We stayed at a hotel. We did a couple little things around here and there, but the main reason for the trip was to go to the MASH film location. We rented a Bug Turo. I like using Turo. We got a Volkswagen Bug convertible off a guy, and the guy lived about 75 yards from the beach in Redondo Beach, and we got a taxi to his house to get the car. And I asked him, why did you get this? And he goes, he owned 9 cars that he put on Turo to rent, and they were like parked in the street in his driveway. He goes, yeah, it's a pain in the butt. And the house he lived in was a older style 2-story house that had been remodeled. It was really beautiful. And he goes, yeah, I was born here. My parents bought this house in 1962. And I said, yeah, for $20,000. He said, no, 18. And there was a little teeny tiny house across the street. It was half the size of his, and it was on the market for like 10.5 million. And the parents paid 18 grand for theirs. Like, holy crap. He's living there, enjoying life. Yeah, in the 70s. Yeah, look, no, I was a kid in the 70s, but the 70s had its ups and its downs, had its positives and its negatives. Had some good music. 80s had good music. Once you got into the 90s, they started using voice synthesizers and cleaning stuff up. Every every era has its good stuff and its bad stuff. But yeah, I remember the 70s. I remember the styles. And in the 80s, you would have died of embarrassment of the styles of the 70s. But today, some of the stuff they had back then is back. Having corduroy pants is freaking cool now. It's on road. I don't know the Austin area very well. I don't know where that is. I did, when I was flying EMS, I was at a temple a couple times, and I flew into Austin, the airport, and flew by the airport to some other places. So I was around that area quite a bit. Well, for California. I grew up in a little town, East Bay, San Francisco. It's called San Ramon, which is by Dublin, which is by Walnut Creek. It's all kind of these little towns. Yeah, I really don't read. I don't have much memory of the area for the highways and stuff. I just remember when I cannonballed, I came down 15 and hit the 410, and I thought I was close to the target, and I looked at my GPS, and I was still 90 miles away from the finish line. I'm like, really? Yeah, Dublin, that area. But again, that was 45 years ago. I don't even think I could find my house at this point. Oh, down the hill, down to 40 miles. Getting close, getting close, getting close. Just under a half tank, 22.2 miles per gallon. I put 306 miles on the tank and I got 243 miles of fuel left. Beach to Zuma Beach. Again, it seems like when we were little kids, my mother would take us to some place called Half Moon Bay and we'd play on the beach. You couldn't really play in the water, it was too cold, but we'd go down there and play on the beach. Half Moon Bay, and I don't remember where it was, but I remember going there and enjoying it, having fun with kids. Lovely roads, right? So Morgantown is West Virginia. So I guess I'll be in West Virginia. Okay. Trying to remember what town, state. What about this job is you bounce around so much you quickly forget where you've been. Like 3 days ago, it's kind of out one ear, just where I was. Ooh. Do, 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 do. Well, my daughters went to college in the San Francisco area. PCAH, military. Nope. To stadium. Gotcha. Okay. Huh. Okay. She went to college somewhere out there years ago, and there's some really crowded roads, and people put these giant concrete blocks to keep people from making shortcuts through residential neighborhoods. And she had a Mini Cooper with electric mirrors, and she was able to fold her mirrors and cut between the concrete blocks. And she can make a really fast transition, and nobody could understand how she did it because she was cheating. Ugh. Yeah. Oof. 37. Circle the drain here, getting tired. I didn't get a whole lot of sleep last night. I just tossing and turning. I was up about 4:30. I just couldn't go back to sleep, so I packed up and drove off by about 5 and said, good sleep. Yeah, she figured that out pretty quick. Uh, uh, California, they're tax crazy out there. Back years ago, my brother who lives in Reno was telling me your registration on your car was like $800. At the same time, in Texas, it was 40. These politicians run for office, and the campaign speech is always vote for me, and I won't raise your taxes, but I'm going to double the registration fees on your vehicle. They're going to find a way to get your money. Yeah, I know. The older you get, the more important it is. People that come out here and spend 30 and 40 years truck driving, the average age of a truck driver, they die at 61 because the human body was not designed to sit. Here I am sitting. These guys that don't get enough sleep, it will kill you. I know that for a fact. but I'm almost to my target. So I'm going to sleep for a few hours, and I'm going to make the delivery, and then I'm going to go back to sleep again. Mainly because on the weekends you don't get a lot of cargo, and on Sundays you absolutely don't get cargo. So I'll drop this and I'll find a place to go hide out. Hopefully it stays cool enough. I don't have to hook any gas. Down to 67 degrees now, so this will be easy. I don't have to do anything when I get there. Just go brush my toofuses and then done. 49th in education. Are you sure certain about that? Thought that was like Louisiana, Mississippi. The problem Texas has is when the masses flood across the border, they fill up all the schools. You know, you're spending your tax dollar to build schools, and then illegals move in. They didn't pay anything for it. You know, the government stands back and goes, "Yeah, don't worry about it. It's no big deal." And I watched a video a couple of days ago, and this guy they said how bad is the migrant problem in Great Britain? This guy said I think he said Scotland. There were 72 public schools in Scotland that didn't have a single white student in it. Every single student was from overseas. So, and then there was another 400 schools that had less than five because they're flooding in and changing it. The way they work in Texas is the illegals work under the counter and work for cash, and then they wire it home. It's a huge business, Texas. And the people that employ them illegally, people who employ them pay them below minimum rate, but they pay them in cash, and that's how they get around. I had a friend of mine who was a legal Mexican. He had a tire business. This is 25 years ago. We were driving around in his truck one day, and we go by this hole-in-the-wall apartment complex, and he points at a room, a one-bedroom apartment. He says, 39 people live in that room. And I went, that's not possible. And he goes, well, that's their address. They all went back to Mexico, but they're collecting their benefits at that address. And their money gets sent home to them. I'm like, oh, that's just wonderful. Come up here, get on the system, go home, and then have your money shipped to you. He pointed that out. I don't know if that's still going on. One of the last time I checked, Texas actually had a budget surplus. It was something like $45 million. That was about 2 years ago. And we don't have income tax in the state. Good morning. Where are we going here? 31. And another hill to roll down. Whoa, what town is this? Can't be Morgan town. This is still showing 30 miles away. This is Crofton. Maybe. No, I live there. uh, two, big headlights. Salem University. Yeah, I don't even. Wow. My brain is quickly turning to mush right now. Jeez. I'm sorry, I'm kind of tapering off here. I'm getting, I'm getting burnt out. I'm getting burned out, but I'm getting close. Tell you what, I'm kind of out of my brain shut down. I'm going to go ahead and end here. I got to put, I got to put the gas station, the pilot in the GPS so I can get straight to it because I've only got the town dialed up in my main GPS and I want to make sure I don't miss my turn. Like I said, I'm kind of started crashing. I got about 30 miles to go. But I'm going to make this delivery sleep, and if something interesting happens tomorrow, I'll come back on. If we find, if I get stuck and I can find a museum to go to, I will. I like to walk around, like in military museums, aviation stuff. That one was maritime. I enjoy doing that. It entertains me. But I'll do it if I can. But I'll catch up with everybody tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out with me.